You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast from thefilmmagazine.com where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, and history through film reviews and discussion and answering questions and stuff. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who, if they found an alien baby, would just leave that in the woods where it belongs.
Oh, that's so harsh.
Pro-choice.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who hopes he doesn't get carried away and turn into a badly rendered bear during this recording.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one that has never been to a baseball game. I needed something very quickly. That's all I've got.
Wait, Sam, have you been to a baseball game?
No, neither have I. I mean, I don't think that many Brits have, really.
No. I mean, we all played rounders at school, which is like one... Yeah, if Jacob, you don't know, essentially... rounders
I know. There's debate about baseball history, whether or not it counts.
Yeah, it's a kind of thing where I think at some point there was a very slight divergence. So I think like the split probably happened before we had rounders, but it's like it still got here first, if that makes sense. It's a bit like rugby and American football.
Yeah,
it's technically from the same game. But
what I can't remember is the people in 19th century America, they had played rounders, so I'm guessing it existed in the UK first, and then eventually came over here, and then people in New York turned it into baseball. All I know is it wasn't Abner Doubleday. That's not true. I know that.
Fair enough. And we should say upon recording this, watching this, streaming this, that we were stupid and didn't realize to do war movies on the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Because guess who? We all never got onto the fact that it was the 80th anniversary.
Or the Omen movies on 6/6.
This is true. But
2 + 4 = 6. So
yeah, but there's 2 2s in the 4.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, because we're not clever here. So instead we're doing something. So instead, like Monty Python, and now for something completely different.
Yes. Well, I mean, not terribly different. I mean, everybody knows about superhero films, but I guess for us, it's kind of a change. We try to avoid that. Maybe not Sam, but I do. I go out of my way to. Kieran just doesn't watch modern movies. I think, Kieran, is this the most modern movie you've seen? Unbreakable?
Whatever. Yeah, I've never seen anything past the year 2000.
He's getting
not
there.
A single thing.
Gradually.
Yeah.
Yes. Although that's a lie. You could go read some stuff he did. But Sam, I believe you have a question for yourself.
I do. I was just going to say, just before we go into it, I'm the resident kind of Marvel defender around here. I'm a Mr. I always describe my film taste as everything from Mike Lee to the MCU. So I like all kind of films. But I generally do like superheroes as a genre, even if it is like as saturated, like the blockbuster market, especially over the last 15 years or so. But occasionally these superheroes aren't based on comic books, aren't based on Marvel, or DC, or any of the others. So my parents asked me because you two haven't seen it. Why was Hancock considered such a bad film when in theory it should have been a blockbuster? So I mean, it was one of those. This is back when Will Smith was still a really big draw in terms of getting people into cinemas. He was still a major star back in 2008. And I went to see Hancock in the cinema at the time with high hopes, and I absolutely hated it. It's awful. And it's something. Saying it wasn't a really blockbuster, it did do quite well at the box office. Actually, I think it was a minor hit. I think.
Wiki, the Fountain of All Incorrect Knowledge, reckons it grossed 629 million, becoming the 4th highest grossing film of 2008.
Yeah. And by the way, its budget was 150. So like if this were a modern superhero film, this would be a massive flop.
Yeah, I mean that's how ridiculous it's getting, isn't it? But I think the problem with that, and kind of how it didn't really connect with audiences and stuff, it's probably one of tone more than anything else. It's kind of it's not a bad idea necessarily to have like a a drunk, schlubby kind of superhero, down on his, kind of down on his luck, trying to get back in the saddle, so to speak. I mean, he's basically, he's playing the character. He's basically Superman. He's invulnerable and he flies. Nothing can pierce his skin. I mean, I think the one kind of moment from it I really remember that was quite struck me. It was quite inventive. Was because nothing can pierce his skin or kind of do anything else. The question was, how does he shave? So, and there's a scene where he's
Or
he's
why
getting
does he
shaved
need
by
to? If the hair is
yeah.
coming, maybe his follicles are penetrable.
Well, probably, but basically, what he does, he uses his own nails to shave because he can penetrate himself, but not so basically, he's just dragging his own nails down his face to shave off his stubble, which is kind of an interesting idea. I remember it didn't have a particularly memorable villain. I think he's just fighting Eddie Marson, who's just a gangster, just like a
Oh.
generic like gangster bank robber, So
He's called
there wasn't
Solo
like
Penis.
so there wasn't like a no, there wasn't like a like another super villain like to fight like any major challenge. It was just him trying to remember kind of what made him become a superhero and kind of growing to care about the people of the city again and quit drinking for a bit so he can do what he needs to do. But yeah, it's just it was fairly dark, like the alcoholic kind of subtext and stuff about depression and him destroying his own like personal life and stuff. But it should have been, I think for me, it should have either been really bleak or the jokes should have been funnier. I think I don't think it kind of deconstructed the genre particularly effectively and. Yeah, I just a lot of it was just pretty forgettable. And aside from watching him shave his face with his own fingernails, I don't remember a whole lot about it.
Well, and a shorter answer for Mr. and Mrs. Sewell Peterson from Rotten Tomatoes. Though it begins with promise, Hancock suffers from a flimsy narrative and poor execution. That is the critic consensus.
Yeah, pretty much. And not even Will Smith's kind of star power really could kind of save it. No one gets by on charisma, even if the film around wasn't that good. But yeah, just maybe something to the performance, maybe because he has to dial back his charisma because he's playing this guy like in a bad place in his life, possibly. But I don't know whether I don't know would it have been healthy if he was like more of a wisecracking kind of unconventional superhero. I don't know, but yeah, didn't really work.
Also, it came out the same year as Iron Man, didn't
Yeah.
it?
Kieran, I have a question.
Between them, I know which one is the better movie, and I've only seen the one.
I have a question you and I can answer also, Kieran. Do you prefer DC or Marvel films when you get around to watching them?
I mean, I've seen more Marvel films than DC. The only Marvel ones I haven't seen in terms of the MCU, I haven't seen anything past Guardians 3. So the last year I haven't seen. And then quite a few of the kind of ones off, like Venom and Morbius and those kind of ancillary stuff I haven't seen. But I will be honest, I watch them to say I've watched them, rather than to actually, I'm really enjoying and wanting to see this. The reason why I actually watched some of the Marvel, the MCU to begin with, is because Avengers was coming out and I was going out with somebody that wanted to go see Avengers. So I'm like, I guess I better catch up with them all before that. And then it's just kind of, you just keep going on and watching them. Oh, I'm this far, I'll watch them to say I've got it done. A bit like all the older Batman films, the Burton ones, the four before Nolan. I watched them to say I'd watched them. You know what I mean? Like I will watch them, but I also don't particularly care. And I don't know whether that was just because I didn't have the investment for a while. I'm just not particularly into them. I don't know. It's just like, it's not that like I don't not like them. I just don't give a damn either way, if that makes sense. And to be honest, a lot of them blur together. So most of like the Marvel films in the middle of it, like I have no idea which one happens in which and that, and I don't know. And then I've seen sort of the first 3 or 4 of the DCEU, which is hilarious because DC actually stands for Detective Comics, and they're not detectives anymore. Like, they're just really not. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my stance on superheroes, which is probably bad doing this.
I mean, I like DC pre-DC EU because you know, like the older Superman films, the older Batman films, and you know, right up to Nolan ones. Really, they were generally pretty good. I mean, a couple of classics in there at least. My kind of borderline obsession with the MCU is more kind of connected to my comics reading habits. I'm a Marvel comics fan. You know, I prefer those storylines in general and the characters. I've got more of a connection to, so seeing those kind of realized on screen and kind of those characters embodied by oftentimes kind of real kind of perfectly cast actors. Kind of is what does it for me.
And the thing I will say is that I'm going to say it anyway. With Joker, because obviously Joker 2 is coming out. The first Joker movie, like, is pretty much, it's just names and a bit of iconography, and aside from that, it's not a superhero movie. It's nothing to do with DC. It's almost like they had another script lying around and went, we just like make him call himself Joker and slap some face paint on and say, oh, it's now set in Gotham, and that's like pretty much it. It's pretty much not like a realistically, it's technically a Batman, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like, it might as well not be. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's a perfect portrayal of the Joker." And it's like, is it? Is it really? It's just, to me, it's just a perfect portrayal of a character that they happen to go, "Oh, this is the same guy." Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Oh, sure. Okay.
They made a character study instead of a superhero movie. Oh, that's awesome.
This is a great change for the superhero genre. It's like, that's because it's not a superhero movie anymore. Start off. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most of my issues with Marvel and the DCEU in general are different. I don't want to just limit it to those, because if I do, it's a lot closer. But DC still comes out on top either way. Like, I love those classic DC movies. I love Adam West Batman. I like the 90s ones that I grew up watching, just because I grew up watching them, probably.
Yeah.
Except the Jack Nicholson one is really good. I wish we had a Nicolas Cage Batman. That would be fun. Love the
as
Nolan
Batman
ones.
or with him as a villain?
Either way. Well, maybe both. And then I there's movies in the DCEU that I don't hate or do like. Like, those exist. They're primarily non-Zack Snyder. So he was my main issue there, I think, because once you get like Shazam, it's really fun, and Aquaman, it's fun. But what I don't like about Marvel is the factory sort of way that they go about their filmmaking, the way that they want to saturate the market so that you're having to watch this one, and then you have to get Disney Plus and watch the TV shows. And I just have such an issue with that way of creating things that it's literally just product at that point. It's not art, and I have a lot to moral oppositions to it.
They are starting to tone it down, but it's to a degree still.
It's that stage where I think they've sort of more realised that they've kind of said, oh, okay, I think people are sort of onto us now. They are starting to. We can't take the answer for granted anymore, so we kind of need to step up a bit and kind of make something that's at least different enough, you know, to keep audiences interested, you know,
and I mean
different shapes of stories.
Is that change because of the philosophical issues, or is it because not as many people are paying to see 10 movies?
It's because of the box office numbers, but that's besides the point.
Because now they've had a flop with the Marvels, then they're gonna up the game.
Let's be honest. Now they've had several flops in a row. Aside from, realistically, post-COVID, aside from Guardians 3 and Spider-Man, they've not really had a hit, despite the fact
which
that
is only half theirs or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Shang-Chi was decent, even if it was pretty much like a Disney animated flick. But like the rest of them were not great. I haven't seen the last two, but from what I've heard, they're not amazing either. Is it Madam Web and then the Marvels as well?
Madam Web is at least hilarious.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Madam Web's not MCU. Don't lump in
Oh,
the
okay.
MCU with Sony.
Venom.
Sony's rubbish.
I like Venom too.
Mo-
Okay, like compared to
Venom, Morbius, and Madam Web, and the upcoming Craven, they're a separate thing. Did you guys see the Venom 3 trailer, by the way, this week?
No, I haven't seen the first two Venoms, so
There's a Venom horse now. Actually gets
I think I did see something for that. Yeah. Like, I mean, the thing with Marvel, essentially making them all the same film, which to a large extent they are. And whenever I'm tutoring and I'm teaching film structure or story structure, I use Kurt Vonnegut's Man in a Hole structure, which is you start out somebody going okay, they get into trouble, get out of trouble again. And I just go, that's every Marvel movie you've ever seen, ever. But occasionally they do take out one that starts to throw a bit of a spanner in the works and change it up very, very slightly. So that's one of the reasons why I liked Guardians, was that it essentially was just Star Wars, but it happened to have a couple of superhero-y bits in it that connect up. One of the reasons why I liked Infinity War is that, yes, okay, when you put it together with Endgame, it is just the middle of that Man in Hole structure, but at least it did end like on a really kind of dour, depressing note of, oh my god, they did that temporarily. They're going to bring them all back, but they did it. Even something like Ragnarok, which is now taking criticism for taking the kind of Marvel humor to an extreme. When you compare it with the others, it was a new, different kind of I don't care humor, which I really liked.
Like Taika Waititi's sense of humor or not, that he's got a unique kind of visual sense of visual storytelling. His films always look very, very visually striking, and there's some really dark stuff in Ragnarok as well in terms of like where it takes the characters, and basically it's I feel about like traumas of like of a nation's past. You know, we used to be kind of warmongers, we used to be colonizers, and it's about like the dark family history, kind of national history, stuff like that.
Coming from somebody from New Zealand, that obviously there are massive colonial things in his past as well. It's going in. Also, the fact that just Ragnarok introduces Korg, who's the best character in the MCU. I'm sorry, like I will rewatch that over and over again purely for Korg.
But have you seen Thor: Love and Thunder yet, Kieran? Because
I have. I can't remember pretty much any of it, but I remember that Korg is in it.
You get Korg overkill on that for me. I think he was good in small doses, but I think Taika needs to be careful about putting himself so front and center in his own films, really.
So with ones like Ragnarok, like that's why I had high hopes for Eternals, because I was like, oh, cosmic Marvel, that's going pretty well. And then it's not very magical, unfortunately.
We've discussed this in a previous episode. If you want to go hear all of us about Eternals, go here.
But like the big problem for me is when people try to say, no, it's not all the same film. This one's a spy thriller. This one's a war movie. And no, they're not. They're the same movie with like a veneer on it that relates to the character. Like Captain America just was in a war. Captain America is going to be working with secret agencies. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. exists. That doesn't make it a spy thriller. Like, wait, Sam, is there one that they try and say as a, or maybe you also do that? I'm sorry if I'm not lumping you in properly. Are any of them horror films?
This is not a romantic comedy. This is actually a horror movie.
Yeah. I mean, the closest they've got was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which basically used Sam Raimi's aesthetic, and at one point Strange turns into a zombie. So
Doctor Strange is surrealism. So
and based on Vincent Price.
I mean that one was one that largely produced this aesthetic that kind of worked for me. It felt different enough, you know, that kind of almost like Inception with like the reality folding kind of stuff.
It was stupid, but and not great, but at least it tried to have fun, you know, like I had something I was going to say then. That was it. Justice League. I've yet to see Snyder's Justice League. But I saw the DC up to that point, and Aquaman. So I'd seen Man of Steel, I'd seen BVS, I'd seen Wonder Woman, I'd seen Justice League, I'd seen Aquaman. I may have seen one of the others, I don't know. But I actually thought that Justice League, even the Whedon version, was better at least than Man of Steel and BVS. because it didn't give a damn. It was stupid, and at least you could have fun with it.
It had fun artificially injected into its veins, you know, when it probably didn't need to be there. So it was a bit kind of jarring, really. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, if you want to see the Snyder version, you want to see it much longer and more serious, then go for it. As well as Zack Snyder's films, it looks great. It's got some really kind of standout, kind of memorable moments, but the overall thing, and I just
like really the serious side of it. Yeah, the serious side of like superhero movies, when you get it right, and this is just in movies in general, when you get it right, it really works. The trouble is, as soon as it's off even slightly for somebody, it just turns into being incredibly boring, no matter how good your visuals are. And the thing with these movies that are like, even if they're not comedies, they're kind of big and stupid and dumb, is you have a larger threshold of them being entertaining at the very least. They might not have the chance to achieve high art as much, but they've got a bigger threshold of like not being like snooze fest, if that makes sense.
That's why I think Nolan's seriousness works, is he takes on the aesthetic of seriousness too, with the gritty look, whereas with Zack Snyder's Justice League, it looks silly, people running around in red and blue costumes and looking like it doesn't work. Like Batman's in both, but it doesn't work for me as well because it's silly but trying to be serious.
And
I mean, one of my favorite superhero movies, going back, not Marvel or DC, is again, is from the serious kind of end of things, is The Crow, and I mean, I'm absolutely dreading the remake coming up because I don't think they're going to be able to kind of deliver anything kind of as kind of emotionally kind of connective. I mean, that film is basically it's a very goth movie. I mean, but like the soundtrack and the look of it and everything. But it's a really kind of treats kind of the subject matter seriously, and it's quite an interesting kind of meditation on life and death and grief and all that, so that kind of really works for me. So you can treat the subject matter kind of seriously, but as you said, Gary, it needs to be consistent. You need to strike the right balance, or else it's just not gonna land.
And I was about to say something, and I completely lost my train of thought literally within seconds, which is not unusual. I'll get it back at some point.
I mean, think about like original superhero movies, other than the ones we're going to be talking about. I mean, there's been quite a few in animation, things like, Incredibles and Megamind and Disney's Bolts, but then you have like things like Sky High, Super, Chronicle, Birdman, arguably.
And even if you go back to like the kind of matinee serials of the 40s, things like Commando Cody, the stuff that Spielberg and Lucas essentially grew up getting through. Commando Cody is great because he would eventually get remade into The Rocketeer, which I've yet to see. But Commando Cody is essentially a superhero kind of crime-fighting alter ego, and it's also where Commando Cody comes from as the character in Star Wars. So it's like that serial is great. It's Radar Men from the Moon, I think, is one of them, and then there is another one. He was in 2 serials, and it's quite funny. Every time he'd kind of take off, they just reused the same bit of footage for each one, because that's how these serials worked. It's the same thing as like the Crimson Death and Fu Manchu and these kind of things. So you did have them even back in the day, and they were great fun. But it's a thing. That's the trouble with this now. I have nowhere to take these points because I'm just not in this. So I'll come up with something and go,
that's what's great, Kieran, is you do have stuff to say about Unbreakable from M. Night Shyamalan.
Shyamalan, unfortunately, with this name, I can start it. I never know quite when to stop.
You like Nanny Og with, is it Banana, which kind of... in Discworld novels, she knows how to start the word banana, but never knows how to stop it. So she says banana, nana, nana, nana.
Yeah, same with Mississippi. I on that front very quickly, I tried to read one Terry Pratchett novel when I was in high school and didn't click with it, and I've never gone back to Pratchett. As much as that is
disappointed. You're British. I presume you like Douglas Adams, so I presume.
But I'm in horror and sci-fi at the moment, not fantasy. Anyway, get into something horrific with lots and lots of deaths in it that you don't see on screen. Unbreakable, which is a Shyamalan movie, essentially made the year after he did Sixth Sense. Sixth Sense, 99 or 98? 99, wasn't it? Yes.
I
So
don't
this
know.
is 2000. You're like, I ain't got a clue.
Was this what he did with the success? He said, I had a great movie come out. Now I'm going to make my weird superhero film.
Yeah, hence Bruce Willis is in this again, who has a kid, and it's not Haley Joel Osment. In the nicest way, it looks like a Haley Joel Osment replacement. I'm sure that wasn't the case, but it looks like a kid who's kind of got the same kind of eyes. The child actor's name, who I'll have to relook up. It looks like it could have been a part written for Haley Joel Osment, and he was unavailable, and they got
Spencer
somebody.
Treat Clark. He's in
Apparently
Mystic River.
so, yes. Yeah,
Oh,
what he said.
it's that dude. He's the kid in Gladiator. He's Commodus's nephew.
I watched Gladiator about 10 years ago.
He's in Agents of
haven't even-
S.H.I.E.L.D. to bring it back to comic book superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah, but Unbreakable's interesting because it's got Bruce Willis as somebody who eventually works out that he can't actually sustain any injuries or kind of have sick days or anything like that. And he gets contacted by Samuel L. Jackson's character, Elijah Price, who...
He survives a train crash first, doesn't he? I mean, that's the tipping point.
Yeah. So he survives a train crash. Everybody else dies, but he comes out without a broken bone, essentially. And he gets contacted by Elijah Price, Samuel Jackson, who gets nicknamed Mr. Glass because his bones break very easily. Some sort of genetic thing, which means his bones are incredibly brittle. So he gets born with his wrists and legs broken, essentially.
At least he'll never go hungry with all that bone brittle. Mm.
God damn it. Anyway. Will you let me finish? No. So essentially, the two meet, and Elijah essentially gives Bruce Willis the idea that he thinks that he might actually be a superhero. Elijah, who is a comic book aficionado and opens his own gallery, pieces of art. At the beginning of the movie, somebody comes in wanting to buy an original drawing for his son, who's 4, and like Elijah turns around and goes, "Obviously, one of us has made a grave mistake and wasted the other one's time. This is an art gallery, sir, not a toy shop." And you know that's the kind of person he is, you know, and he thinks that comic books are a form of kind of way of passing down information that's been passed down through hieroglyphics and all these pictorial forms, and they're a way of essentially encoding myths and ideas that we've lost in other forms of literature. And yeah, the most of the rest of the movie is Bruce Willis's origin story, slowly finding out that he is in fact a superhero, and he's kind of weightlifting and he's putting on more pounds, and his kid, who again I've forgotten the name. This is so great, isn't this? I can't remember the names of anything, even though I watched it literally today again, which is the 3rd time I'm watching it. I can't remember the name.
Joseph Dunn is the character.
Yeah, there we go. I've now got it up on Wiki because obviously I didn't have that up beforehand. I'm so well prepared. His kid Joseph at one point believes his dad's a superhero, that essentially on the dining table at dinner time, he's got a gun that he's gone and loaded, and essentially he's like, "I'm going to shoot Dad because he can't die, therefore I can shoot him, and then nothing will happen." And the eventually managed to de-escalate and stuff like that. So everyone
don't
thinks he's
do
a
that
superhero.
every meal, by the way. That's abnormal in America.
Are you sure?
We don't.
Depends on where in America.
It's considered uncouth to do it. It's not something you're supposed to do.
So when me and Sam eventually come visit, this won't happen. Okay.
Yes. Can't.
Fair enough.
I'll guarantee that I won't do it.
Okay. So yeah, eventually Bruce Willis gets on a cape and he goes and punishes some bad guys, and oh look, he's a superhero now. And that's kind of like the whole thing. I don't know. Should we give twists?
Yeah. I think the statute.
He is breakable.
The statute of limitations has passed now.
Okay, if you don't want to hear it, turn off. If you don't want to hear the results,
I see you live,
look away
people.
now. Yeah, it turns out that Elijah has actually like manufactured and like committed like several acts of terrorism wherever Bruce Willis is to try and work out whether he is in fact breakable. And it turns out he's not. So he's actually and he finds this out when he shakes his hand, because one of Bruce Willis's powers is that when he comes into contact with somebody like brushing against them, he can like tell whether they're a bad guy or not. And he gives his whole thing. It's like, oh my god, Mr. Glass was behind it the whole time. He's now a supervillain.
So does he not touch him the first time they meet?
No.
Oh, because he'll break his hand.
Yeah, doesn't he offer? He declines a handshake, doesn't he?
Yeah, and right at the end, it's like, I believe that this is now when we shake hands, and we shake hands.
Yeah. Is there a part where Bruce Willis has to figure out that he can touch people and figure out they're evil, or is that something he just kind of knows from the jump?
He originally
discovered it by accident, doesn't he?
Yeah, Elijah kind of brings out of him that he can have like a sixth sense of whether somebody's a bad guy. So, for example, he works at he works at as a security guard at the university baseball stadium, and he gets a sense that a guy in a camo jacket has a gun on him. It's a silver gun with a black handle. And then it turns out later to be true that it was there. So it's really weird that he senses all of these things about other people without touching them for a lot of the time. But he has to shake hands with Elijah in order to find out that he's essentially committed like 400 odd murders. Probably more than that, I think, is because he committed the train crash and a couple of other like major disasters that, you know, there are like hundreds of people dead in his hand. You'd think that Bruce Willis would be able to sense this just away from them, and no. But so, and of course there's going to be a twist because it's a Shyamalan movie, and even though he'd only done one really with a notable twist, he's now between the two of these, really this is where he becomes known, and then signs obviously after for having these twist endings.
I mean, even before the Sam Jackson reveal, there is a sort of a lesser twist as well in terms of like what is David Dunn's kind of actual weakness, you know. So that he can't be physically harmed, but he could drown, basically. So see where he gets stuck in like the cover of the swimming pool.
It turns out water is his weakness. It's not like he'll recycle this at any point in the near future. No, I mean, it's an interesting one because it's not a superhero. It's not flying around and stuff like that. It's just like a vigilante kind of beginning growth kind of thing. It's
Batman
an origin
with
story.
powers.
It's just kind of in a way,
and it wasn't
typical.
And it wasn't really marketed as a superhero movie. It was marketed as a mystery, a mystery thriller, wasn't it?
It's a mystery thriller that just happens to have kind of comic book ideas as a framing device, almost. And right at the end, Elijah going, "Look, we can tell. Like, I now know who I am because I know who you are. We're paired up together, like a superhero and a supervillain. Therefore, I have a sense of identity. Therefore, I know this." Now, when I saw this the first time a couple of years ago, I think it was actually in my article that I did for TFM a number of years ago on plot twists, because I just also watched The Game, the David Fincher movie before that, and I had the same issue with that, this is when I outlined my technical specifications for what actually constitutes a plot twist over a reveal, over the really awful thing where it's actually revealed and they try to convince you it's a plot twist by making them think they're more clever than they are. And my thing was that for a decent plot twist to actually work, you have to have had all of the information given to you beforehand. AKA somehow Palpatine returned doesn't work because there is no way you could actually predict.
It's like if you're a master killer and it's someone you've never seen before, that's not a plot twist.
So it's not a twisted seven? Oh no.
No, I would say it's not a twist. I'd say it's a reveal.
I agree.
Or even you take the mask off and it's, you know, somebody you do know. If there is no physical way, realistically, even if you're like the super sleuth, you could have worked it out beforehand.
Save Martha. Twist.
There you go. That's not a plot twist. That's a reveal of new information that we didn't previously have. That they've now gone, it's a plot twist this whole time. And it's like, well, no, you're just trying to pass something off that there is no way we could have expected. And I have the same feeling about Unbreakable. Is that the whole thing of Elijah being the bad guy at the end. By doing that, they then try and throw in a couple of lines of, oh, the superhero and villain are usually friends like we are. They're usually the opposites like we are. And it's like, if you'd have thrown this casual line, like occasionally, like very early on, and given flashbacks to it, fair enough. But just randomly throwing this bits to us now, going, you should have spotted this earlier. It's like,
I do like their I do like his discussion, his breakdown of like all the kind of depictions, like all the tropes in superhero comics and how the characters are drawn and styled and everything like that, and how obviously that is in the film as well. You know, how his love of of purple and kind of his physicality versus like versus
hence
Bruce
he has
Willis.
purple lightsaber.
Yes.
Well,
it's
I have another question about his superpowers because obviously water makes him vulnerable. He doesn't like it. And throughout his whole youth, he would have been drinking water. Is that how he was like able to play football without murdering people? Or like does the water tone down his superpowers and he was just dehydrated when he got on the train?
Or do they only manifest when they need to, like to save him, that's kind of how I've always kind of like the crash is like the catalyst, for awakening it. It's almost like how the mutants come about usually in the X-Men comics and films. There's normally they'll either come out, come to the surface like during puberty, or it'll be like a particular event that'll through
Like
trauma
stressful.
Kind of activate them for the first time.
There's a trigger like awakening a sleeper cell kind of thing. It's an interesting one. I don't like highly rate it, and that's not just because it's not a good film. It's good, but it's at the same time, like, let's be honest, it's actually incredibly slow. It takes a long time to do anything, and part of this is the way that it's shot. So there's a lot of these kind of very long takes, very framed, almost like he is trying to replicate comic book panels. And the initial conversation that there is with Bruce Willis when you introduce them on a train, and he's talking to somebody else, and it will essentially look through the row of seats in front between the slot between the seats to him, and it's almost like he's being framed in comic book panels, cutting kind of back and forth in a way. And so there's interesting stuff in it, and there's interesting discussions, and there's like decent enough characters, and Elijah Price is an okay enough character, but the execution of it isn't 100% great. And literally at the end, it's like, oh, I'm the bad guy. Cut. Let's reveal what happened in exposition, like text over the top. It's like, did he just run out of time? Did they have like 10 minutes of him going to the police and like dealing with this understanding of what somebody else has done properly? And they just cut that out. Like there's odd choices in there that I'm not 100% happy with, and I don't 100% like the
I think for the twist to work more, because we didn't even really know anyone necessarily was behind all these kind of incidents, really.
No.
Just being like accidents and stuff, couldn't they? We almost need obviously like a Kaiser Soze kind of thing, confirm someone was there. There was a mastermind behind this, but we don't know who it is, so you just see a figure like watching on, or having a part in it, and then twist it could be Sam Jackson. But
are there no news organizations coming on and saying we need to know who is behind all of these happenings?
Well, no, because they're just passed off as accidents. And it's the train crash is the main one. I think he's around one or two more, Bruce Willis, but it's also mainly it's Elijah's kind of committing acts of terrorism in the hopes that somebody comes out unscathed, essentially. And there's a little bit, or even almost throwing in some red herrings that somebody's skulking around Bruce Willis. Even if it's just turned out to be just normal people, and then it turns out there is a mastermind, just to give a hint there might be something.
Yeah, I think that would have been really effective. Have someone who looks like more like a classic kind of comic book villain, like give someone who, I know it's a regressive kind of thought, but it would have been appropriate for the time. Have someone with a facial disfigurement or something, or someone
Yeah,
who's who's like acting suspiciously or looks like a henchman or something.
yeah.
Just
I think yeah, I think it's an interesting idea to kind of put a superhero kind of archetype on
yeah,
a crime thriller, essentially, drama. Um, but it doesn't 100% work. And it's not that I don't like it, I just don't care for it, if that makes
yeah,
sense. And then obviously he goes and revisits this later down the years because he had a string of successes and then a string of flops, and then the visit he kind of started having fun again.
yeah.
Um, and so he then went and did Split, which right at the end they link it in with because Bruce Willis's character turns up, and then Glass kind of links it all together because it's a good idea. Oh god, now I have to make a third one to link it all together now.
But by
And
the
since then,
way,
admittedly, he hasn't done the worst movies ever.
when was he dubbed the Overseer? Is that in this movie? Is that something that's like extra textual? Is it in Glass? Do we know?
I think it's in Glass.
So that was probably thrown together at the last moment then.
Yeah,
Well, did Shyamalan actually do some comics like following on Unbreakable? Does it come from that possibly?
possibly. I don't know. Were there any Unbreakable comics?
It's
I
kind of thing
don't
that
know.
happened around then. If it was like an original character, then they'd probably do like a limited kind of series of issues or something to kind of
Yeah,
try.
I'm
By the
just
way,
double checking to see if there were any versions. There are lots of
there
comic book references in it. That's precisely the point.
the C also on the Wikipedia page for Unbreakable, at least for me, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, if it's an algorithm thing. It says C also, list of films featuring home invasions, and list of sole survivors of aviation accidents and incidents.
Okay.
So is he on that list?
I don't know. But I mean, hilariously enough, let me just check the date. It's a couple of years earlier. Dean Koontz had written a book called Soul Survivor. Actually, no, it was a while earlier. It's from 1979. Why do I think it was later than that? Where literally there's one or two characters that may be sole survivors of a plane crash. So it
These
is a
appear
thing.
to all be real people on the list,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
And there's Fearless as well from about 5 years earlier. Peter Weir film with Jeff Bridges. Again about a miraculous soul survivor of a plane crash, and kind of gives him like a new lease on life. But
Yeah. So it
there's
hasn't done
obviously
yet.
a thing around there, wasn't there?
Yeah. So yeah, Unbreakable's an interesting one. I don't even really think of it as a superhero movie. And to be honest, even Split and Glass, I don't think of as superhero movies. They're just films that use superhero iconography and ideas as an element in their storytelling.
Well, maybe we should have asked that at the beginning, Kieran. What is a superhero film if not using the superhero archetype?
Yeah, but there's that's like saying it's a Shakespeare film if it's got kind of Shakespearean archetypes and discussions of you are a Shakespeare character. And it's like, well, no.
Well, but that's a specific writer versus
it's Fast 9 a superhero movie because they call themselves superheroes in it.
Yeah, I'd say generally it's stories about people who can do extraordinary things, isn't it? Like kind of unnatural things.
Unnaturally extraordinary because like 150 hours or whatever is extraordinary.
But like as they argue in Kick-Ass, they kind of pointing out, well, what about Batman? Why is he a superhero? It's like, yes, he doesn't have superpowers, but he's got all the expensive shit that doesn't exist. So that's what makes him a superhero.
It's like in the same way that Joker really isn't a superhero movie. I also don't think this really is. It's like it's one of those ones where technically it is, but at the same time I go, yeah, but it might as well not be, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
What do you think the average viewer would walk away thinking with this film?
It is an unconventional take on the superhero genre.
Well, there you go. I would say that
And I
nails
go,
it.
yeah, because it's not. I think, no.
I think they're saying,
Unconventional by not.
yeah, cool thriller, shocking twist. God, they're a bit obsessed with talking about superheroes and that, weren't they?
You know what they'd call it
That's what
now if this
Kieran
came
says.
out? It would be an elevated superhero film.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed. Let's see. Okay, I mean, we're going from one that is kind of old to a more recent one, although 2017.
Well done for the Shyamalan reference.
I was trying to find ways to cram them in, but there's no spot for The Last Airbender. Yeah. Sam, tell us about Getting Older by the Day, film from the faraway year of 2017 and the faraway from me land of Russia.
I would say make a load of Russia jokes, so don't fall into that trap now. Shyamalan joke for a film that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah. It does. It does seem like this memory, doesn't it? 2017. Oh, we were so young and innocent back then. So yeah, I'm talking about Guardians, which is not to be confused with of the Galaxy, or that animation with the Easter Bunny and Santa, or that weird Zack Snyder Owl movie. It's a different Guardians.
I was thinking of the Owl movie. I have no idea what it is. I haven't seen it, but I knew there was a Guardians Owl movie.
Yeah. So yeah, rather than rewatch an original superhero film I'd seen before, I could have done Chronicle, I could have done Super Bob, could have done The Incredibles, but yeah, no, I decided I'd go for one that I was aware of existing, but never haven't kind of got around to seeing it before now. And yeah, it took me 2 days to watch this 95-minute movie. I got about halfway through my first attempt. I thought, "Oh, no, I'm done with this. I'm losing the will to live now." And then the second night, I nearly nodded off during the final action scene, which is meant to be like the exciting finale, but it really.
Did you restart the film on the second day?
No, I just resumed from where I.
Okay, so it wasn't even like it took you an hour to start nodding off. It literally was sort of 10 minutes into your actual watching period. You're like, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah. So yeah, not even a bear with a minigun on its back can stop Sarek Andreassen's move from being a tedious derivative trash. Basically, it's not a good thing.
And by the way, I should probably point out that we know this obviously is a film from Russia, and obviously there's issues on that. We're allowed to do this because it sounds like Sam is going to absolutely rip the hell into it.
Yes,
by the way,
so we're not giving it any good publicity from what I can feel.
Sam, how is their montage theory within the film? Pretty well adapted from their forebears, or?
God, it does actually open with a credits montage, which is very much like the same one from Watchmen, which establishes like an alt universe kind of Cold War, basically. So and it kind of introduced the concept of super soldiers being created like after World War II, like sometime during the 50s or the 60s. And so you get like this kind of this kind of montage with like fake headlines and kind of you can kind of see like slightly different things about this universe. I think this references like the Cuban Missile Crisis going a different way, and I mean it goes right up to kind of contemporary times really, but except in this universe the Soviet Union still exists, USSR never collapsed, so just kind of interesting. So yeah, you get this kind of alt universe kind of Cold War kind of credits montage, and then you get the title of Guardians, and then bizarrely 10 minutes later you get Guardians again. So just so one of the characters can do that thing like they did in the Avengers, where it's like, "What's your plan? What should we do?" We should call the Avengers or Avengers Assemble. Just like, what do we call this program? Guardians, which would have been fine. But why did you have it at 10 minutes earlier as well? What I don't understand. There's this weird in the opening credits. There's this weird fake newspaper headline, which sounds like it's been kind of it's probably badly translated. I mean, these are the subtitles, obviously, but it's definitely badly translated from Russian. I don't think the English should be this broken. The headline is "Superhuman Hours Soviets Great Victory of Mind and Labor."
No, I
Oh.
choose to believe that is what it actually is.
Yeah. Okay.
I think probably from the sounds of it, if it was more like that, it would be a better film.
Yeah. So basically, let's establish that these super soldiers, with powers, kind of exist. We sort of get like a bit of exposition. That basically, there was a good scientist who was, well, good in inverse commas. He was doing genetic experiments on people, for new weapons of war. And then he's basically his research stolen by an evil scientist who turns the research to his own ends for more devious methods, and he escapes underground with this research. But he's discovered, and they try to take him out, and his lab blows up, and it turns him into a monster. And the bad guy, Kuratov. So he's an evil mad scientist. One, who has super strength from the lab accident. Two, that basically turns him into like a Hulk. Who's like 80% neck. It's like a really weird kind of design for a guy. He's obviously like a big guy, but they've added like layers of prosthetics on top of him, so he just looks
Yeah.
out proportioned and strange.
He looks like he's wearing a rubber bodysuit and also a rubber
Yeah.
mask.
Yeah, he looks like he's wearing a mask of his own face, because it's not like a monster face. It's just like out of proportion. It's like,
Yeah, it's really
so
strange.
yeah, yeah. So he's even mad scientist. He's got super strength, but he's got also from the lab accident. He's got powers to control all technology. He's kind of got his electric powers where he can manipulate like anything with a chip in them, or if there's AI for the modern day scenes, he can kind of take it all over basically. Um, and then he's also got a clone army in cold storage, and he also has got a super weapon space laser. So it's
Obviously.
like basically all the bad guy plots in one character, basically, and they never really decide what he's actually trying to do. It's just, I'm just going to be evil for being evil's sake, and look at all these things I can do and all these things I want to achieve. Um, so he's kind of, he comes back, and he takes over a lot of tanks and drones and goes on a rampage basically to take over the world, which prompts the Soviet government to reactivate their secret super soldier program, the Guardians program. I can't remember what else. Their organization is called something else, but I've forgotten it already because it's so boring.
In Cyrillic, I believe it's 3AW backwards in TH in
Yeah.
K backwards
Hang on a
in.
sec.
However,
Yeah,
that is
please translate that.
It's called. Oh, sorry. It's so the organization is Patriots, and they run the Guardians program, which is the super soldier program. Yeah. So anyway, they realize this guy's got to be stopped. This program that was long ago kind of shrouded secrecy and mothballed. We'll get these extraordinary people back, and we'll go around the world and recruit these former heroes to fight for Russia again and save it.
What do you mean former heroes? Like they retired? Because like they look young.
It's never really clear kind of when they came about, when they went, and why they went. Really, it's just we know they made these super soldiers, and we know they disappeared at one point, and now we've got to go get them. So I it may have been mentioned, but I was really trying to concentrate on it, and I don't think it's concretely established.
Surely they focused on who these superheroes are. Are you? Yeah. I don't want to mess up your flow, but I'm curious.
Yeah. I'm going to. But before that, Elena, who's the Nick Fury of this knockoff Avengers, she's trying to get the team together basically.
Is this where Vin Diesel's baby mama goes in Fast and Furious when she's not on screen?
Possibly. She basically she runs the Patriot program, and she's given like her mission by her senior in the military, like a senior officer in the military. and this film doesn't have like explain itself in really clunky dialogue. So just in case you hadn't gathered what she's about to do, but she's going to state it just point blank. So I have 2 weeks to search the entire Soviet world to assemble a team of superheroes, a team to stop a supervillain. And the guy says yes. And then that's the point where she goes, what are we calling this mission? Guardians. That's where the title comes up, but which again would be fine if they hadn't already had the title. But I can't get over that. I really can't.
Yeah, at least Fantastic Four does it at the end. Like,
yeah. I thought there were a lot of comparisons, especially in Russian media, to Fan 4 Stick in terms of quality. So, but I'll get to that. Yeah, so he flies off around the Soviet bloc to recruit these guys. So she goes to by the way, they're all from different former Soviet countries, which is kind of interesting. And I think there was possibly some effort to link them culturally, but I might give them a bit too much credit for that. So she goes to Armenia first, to this monastery, to recruit this religious hermit called Lur, who can control rock. Who can control rocks? That's his power. He controls rocks, so he can levitate them. He can cause earthquakes. He can throw them at people. He's basically a shit airbender. Basically,
there's the last Airbender connection. Yeah.
So, or a shit earthbender, I suppose. So he's like the grizzled kind of veteran kind of guy. Basically, he used to basically be the leader of the team, I think, and he's kind of dedicated himself to like a life of solitude and religion. But yeah, he's attempts back into it. So they go pick him up. Then they go to Kazakhstan. To pick up Khan, who's an anime-looking dude who can teleport and wields 2 huge curved blades. Now, he definitely, even though all these synopses for this film and description of the characters talk about him having super speed like the Flash, he's not speedy. He clearly teleports. He's more like Nightcrawler. It's like you see like a plume of like particles as he disappears. It's like, so he's zipping around basically and slicing people up.
Okay.
And he's running around with like these, with like big anime hair and like white eyes and a mask. So he's very much like one of the anime crowd. Then they go to Siberia for Bearman Asus, who's
Siberia.
So he's basically Siberia, yes. So he's basically a werebear. It's like he kind of he's a man, but yeah, he kind of when he gets particularly, he's sort of like halfway between a werewolf and Hulk, basically, because it's like
the character from the second Hobbit movie.
Yeah, he's a bit like Bayonne, yeah.
It's like top of his shoulders up. He is a bear.
Yeah.
But he's human. This is kind of where it meets.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So
based on the prosthetics.
Yeah. So he's sort of more like a Minosaur, I suppose, but a bit in bear form. But yeah.
Actually, do his muscles look like rubber suit as well in the movie?
No, it's all done with really, really poor CG. I mean, I was going to say his transformation looks like something from 90s TV. It's like, did you ever watch Animorphs? It's like that.
So it's from 90s TV or 2020s Marvel.
And can he change his head to human head, or is he permanently stuck with bear shoulders up?
No, he looks like a human most of the time, but then when he transforms, his upper half goes all beary. Except when he gets really kind of out of control and feral, he turns into a full-on bear. That's like a second transformation.
We won't like him when he's angry.
Yeah. Well, what is his trigger? Yeah. Is it like he smells salmon or?
It's basically like Hulk. It's like a blood rage. Basically, he gets like a.
When he finds injustice against the Soviet Union unbearable, he will transform.
There we go.
Yeah, and in the latter stage of the movie, because of course they've got to have an initial battle where they fail. So they've got something to build back up to. But later on, they get like upgrades. They'll get new suits and new gadgets and stuff, and they give him a minigun to to carry
Guns.
around. Like,
Lots of guns.
yeah, yeah. So there's this bear man walking around with the minigun, and then when he goes full on bear mode, the gun kind of goes onto his back basically. So he's like it's almost like a mobile turret, like a furry.
Why does that
turret.
sound more like a Yu-Gi-Oh card than actual
Yeah,
like